Happy Friday, everyone. Tom Grisafi, Agbo Media, Agbo Trading. You're listening to the Agbo Podcast. I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. We have a lot of news, and it was a strange day. Some interesting stuff happened. I'll add a little color to it. But the CME group shut down for 8 hours overnight. And you know what? When you are the Board of Trade, the CME, the COMEX, and the NYMEX, and you are where price is discovered, it adds a little chaos. But speaking of chaos, we got someone to calm us down. Mr. Jim Wiesemeyer, hopefully he didn't eat too much turkey and he has some energy left. Let's give this man a little introduction and we'll bring him on the show. Mr. Wiesemeyer, break it all down for us, sir.
Well, we've got a baker's dozen of topics to try to clear up a lot of confusion on a number of topics. So we're going to get right to it, okay?
Yes, sir. Will the Fed cut rates, Mr. Jim?
Yes, 80% odds. That's what the market is saying. So if we don't get a cut December the 10th, which is the Federal Open Market Committee, FOMC, the equities market is going to go down a lot. So the equities are closely following the interest rate issue. But I think the Fed would have come out with disqualifying statements recently had the market been so far off. So yes, I expect an interest rate cut of only 25 basis points. And sometime in December, we should get President Trump's recommendation for the new Fed chairman. The inside track is saying the market's saying Kevin Hassett. That's the National Economic Council, director. But I've learned on appointments, Tommy, they can change very fast. But we're going to get the announcement sometime in the month of December.
So Jay Powell's out. He will hit the unemployment number, but I'll tell you, don't worry. I'm sure he'll make a small fortune in consulting as a Wall Street firm picks him up, right, Jim?
Absolutely. He can stay as long as May next year because he's a board governor. So it'll be curious whether or not he stays. I think most Fed chair people would probably leave after a new person comes in, but we'll see.
Yeah, couldn't be a week if we didn't talk about these two, U.S.-China trade deal and soybeans.
Well, we had another soybean sale, daily sale from USDA this morning. I think we're over 2 million tons now. You'll recall that Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent had been saying around Thanksgiving, and we're right around Thanksgiving, that we'll get a signed agreement between President Trump and Xi Jinping, China's leader. We didn't get that yet. Why is a signed agreement so important, Tommy? That'll show China confirming some of these tonnage levels of soybeans that keep being mentioned. 12 million tons of purchases, not for delivery yet this year, but purchases during November and December. As I said, we're a little over 2 million tons now, and 25 million tons annually for 26, 27, and 28. An agreement would also tell us if China has an escape clause that says they will purchase U.S. commodities if price competitive. Well, we know that we're over $1 more expensive than Brazilian soybeans. So that's their escape valve if they put it in writing. And also, why an agreement I think is needed is enforcement language. If China doesn't fulfill, what are the enforcement mechanisms that U.S. is telling China that they could face? All that is embodied in there, but we'll see whether or not we get a signed agreement.
U.S. Farmer Aid Package promised delayed and now unclear.
USDA Secretary Brooke Rollins said earlier this week that it will come next week, okay? and it will be delivered in early January. Now, that gives me a little signal there. Number one, we'll need to know what concept did they use on this coming farmer aid package? Is it going to be limited to a trade mitigation program, especially China? Or will it be more general? But if it's just China or trade, the total funding level may surprise people on how low it will go. I've seen estimates on Reuters as high as $15 billion, and if it's just trade oriented, it could be under 10 billion. So she's going to
Hmm.
have to fill in the blanks on that one. And as far as farmers getting the aid, by no means is it a bailout. It'll be
Hmm.
far below the needs in the our farming community. That's about 40 billion, by the way.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
what I was just gonna
it's
ask you.
this is seen as a partial bridge into 2026, and it'll be curious too where Brooke Rollins announces this, whether or not she has some lawmakers behind her. If she has G.T. Thompson, the House Ag Committee chairman, and John Bozeman, the Senate Ag Committee chairman, with her, maybe they'll talk about the next step on farmer aid, which would be a possible congressional farmer aid package similar to the one we had December 21st in 2024. That totaled $10 billion, by the way. So,
Mm.
bottom line, quoting Brooke Rollins, it's coming next week. We'll have to see the funding level. She's already saying payments are going to be made in early January, which tells me it won't be too complex of a program to operate. And then we're going to have to see if Congress is going to deliver on a more general farmer aid package late this year.
And that brings my question. Our sugar beet growers, the all the things we talk about they grow in California that were affected, whether it be you talk about them all the time. My um, cotton. Have you seen the
Cotton,
cotton futures? Woof, that's no good.
no,
Who's going to help these people?
really, cotton is. I think of all the commodities that I talk about in my speeches, and I go down to the South a lot. Cotton is hurting the most.
Hmm.
Uh, when China was a market for U.S. cotton, you had cotton prices in the 90 cent area, Tommy. Now we're in what, the 60,
Yeah, low
62.
60s. That's the futures price. I imagine typically the cash price is lower.
It
I
it
don't.
it really hurts, and so the outlook it just it's somber. So I'm going to have to take a concerted look at that cotton industry to see the elements of positives in the years ahead. Sorghum is another commodity that really went down relative to China. Now we've had a small purchase recently, and I think the China will purchase more sorghum or Milo because they like it in their liquor there. So maybe sorghum has a updraft, coming. And soybeans, we've seen a price appreciation, but the vast majority of the soybean traders and analysts think that China won't fulfill those tonnage terms that we talked about, but we'll see.
Yeah, and that leads us into our next great segue. If farmers aren't making money, these people are probably struggling.
Yeah, John Deere came out Wednesday with their outlook, and even though they topped their fourth quarter
Oops,
forecast, it was their look ahead to 2026, Tommy,
that's what we.
that got people nervous. Look at the left hand side on the far left,
Hmm.
large ag equipment down 15 to 20%. That's what's hurting John Deere right now because farmers, in a word, they can't afford them. So they're not purchasing them. Now, Deere in their earnings call, and I listened to every word of it, and I wrote a story about it on Wednesday afternoon. Yeah. Uh, and they're saying that 2026 will be the bottom. Uh, let's hope. Let's hope. And importantly, they didn't have farmer aid built into their forecast. Uh,
Really?
yeah, so I think that's an important from an investing perspective, because we know farmers are going to get some additional aid for sure from the administration, and possibly more than likely from Congress. So that could mean, that we could see the bottom. But what's the top side? Because it looks like the ag sector is getting used to these big increases in aid, Tommy. But
Hmm.
at least in the fall of next year, these higher reference prices for farmers in the farm programs are going to kick in. But that's why we need the bridge aid between now and 2026 plantings, and before those higher farm program payments kick in the fall of 2026, if we continue to have relatively low prices. That's your bottom line.
Yeah, and folks, if you missed that story, it's going to be at the top of the Agbo website here in the next few minutes. We'll get that posted. Agbo Intel. Click on Wiesemeyer's perspectives for all his latest content. As fast as Jim releases that, you can get it. Of course, if you'd like to sign up for Jim's personal newsletter, his email is scrolling across the bottom. Wiesemeyer@gmail.com. Back to the show, my friend.
Yes.
All right. So we went through Deere, and now let's talk about this is interesting. Any day now, trade deal with India and Canada.
We've heard that for about a year from from various from President Trump to Treasury Secretary Bessent to U.S. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer, and we just don't get it. Now, eventually, I think we will get a phased in trade deal, but I also mentioned Canada in our headline here because talk with Canada. They're having the same problem with India, that you get so close, but then it comes up with certain snags in the case of
Hmm.
dairy exports to India. And in the case of the US, we also include digital aid. India just drags their feet, but Trump really wants them as a buffer to China. So I think eventually we'll get one, but it's been a long wait, Tommy.
Hmm.
Several months ago on Food Security Report, USDA pulled the annual report, and Democratic farm state lawmakers just railed, saying, "Oh, this is not the time to cut out that report." So, but at the time, I remember talking to USDA officials, and they said, "Look, don't worry, we're going to come up with a new approach for the food security report." Well, that's been several months ago, and at the time, they told me they were negotiating with the data firm, and they couldn't put out the information until they had a signed contract. I still don't have an update on that. They say it's coming, but we really need to know the parameters of the food security, because that helps in food aid, not in the U.S. And I think it is needed information. USDA keeps telling me it's coming.
Speaking of USDA, SNAP.
Are we going to get the reform? Brooke Rollins, USDA secretary, keeps saying that she needs more information from the states. She's got it from the red states, in most particular, as to far as the information they need to really assess overpayments. I mean, some recipients, not all, but some recipients of SNAP get paid 3 to 4 to 5 times. Now that shouldn't happen. So
Hmm.
in a program that supplies mostly needed food for up to 42 million people, you're going to have a lot of problems in there. That's just fact. And she says there's more fraud and abuse than people realizes. And she said recently she's going to have everyone recertify in order to check the qualifications. Well, again, that got the SNAP proponents just all up in the air, because I don't know whether they know internally that there's a lot of misuse of that program, or they're saying that it would put a lot of busy work, if you will, on those offices. But when Brooke says something like that, I think she's got the command and control behind her to follow through on that. Bottom line, there is a lot of fraud and abuse in the food stamp program, and they need data in order to prove it and to change it. Now, this also ties into another subject we're going to have later on. So
Mhm.
we'll bring SNAP back up relative to the Farm Bill 2.0 discussion.
Yeah, and let me ask you a question. People probably think I'm joking, but do you think they'll go to cemeteries and get those people re-registered who are getting it, who already passed away, or how would one go about that?
That's part of the abuse, that there's more than a few dead people who continue to get those electronic electronic payments. And
Hmm.
the stamp program, i uh, I think more than any other program has the most errors in it. Conversely, crop insurance has one of the best, lowest amount of problems, and I think that's because of the very close relationship the government has in working with the private crop insurance industry. It's one of the best programs that I've ever seen in my 50-year career.
Absolutely. Let's take a little break for station identification. You're listening to the Ag Bill Podcast. My name's Tommy Grisafi, the one and only Jim Wiesemeyer's on. Jim Wiesemeyer, we take his articles, we post them as fast as they come out, and trust me, I don't know when the man sleeps, but additional shows are now premium content. If you'd like premium content, www.agbull.com, putting out videos, text alerts, all types of breaking news. We're up watching the markets 24 hours a day, so you don't have to. All that for $25 a month. Back to the show. Mr. Wiesemeyer.
And I
We
wanted to say, Tommy,
Oh, yeah.
Tuesday, this coming week, I'm going to be in Auburn, Nebraska for Ruth Curtis's crop insurance company,
Oh, yeah, Ruth.
sponsored by Farmers Mutual, I believe. And so if you're in that area and if you're a client of my longtime friend in the crop insurance industry, Ruth Curtis, come to her event.
Oh, absolutely. Ruth and her husband, Myron, good
Yes,
friends, and she's a legend in the crop insurance
she is
industry. A
very
legend.
much so.
Yeah.
She really taught me and mentored me as much as she could in my fledgling days. Now that goes back a ways, huh?
Yeah, but we need age and wisdom to guide people of all ages through this turbulent time. We need that steady hand to just say, you know what, we got this. Here's what we're going to do, and keep moving forward. Speaking
And
about steady,
Ruth is
yes,
doing it to her firm. She had her girls, as she calls them. She's a believer in mentoring, and she has, and the people coming up in her organization will carry on, the baton because Ruth taught them.
yeah, absolutely. I'll be on the Iowa Illinois border speaking for one of the great corn seed companies here in the Midwest. I'll have that data out to clients and friends. But Whiffle's hybrids, just a
Oh yes,
absolute,
Wiffle,
yeah,
yeah,
legend.
Illinois too.
Yeah,
Yep,
Illinois, and they're expanding all over the country. But Whiffle's hybrids, just they do one thing, and they kick ass doing it. And they make corn seed, and absolute privilege to give
very
a
good
market
firm.
outlook there. Yeah, very good. And several of the employees are friends and clients, so absolute privilege to get out there and give people good news. I actually have some good news for the people. So, and I bet you they watch this show. So let's see here. This one, I always have to ask you, what are we fighting for in this one?
Oh, Affordable Care Act. Let's make it affordable, but let's make it prudent. And it's neither of the two right now. The issue is that, and this was the number one issue of why we had a 43-day government shutdown, because the Democrats tried to use the shutdown in order to get the Republicans and President Trump to agree to extend the enhanced Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare credits that came about during the COVID years, Tommy. Well,
Hmm.
they end at the end of December this year. And if they're not extended in one way or the other, there's going to be a pretty good increase, not a pretty good, pretty bad increase in for the around 20 million people, I think, get ACA and Obamacare. Now, where we're at right now is that President Trump again said today, I think, he said, people are quoting him saying that he's working a deal with the Democrats to extend the enhanced credits for 2 years. He said, no, no. I don't want that. I want to work. We may have a 1 year partial increase, but he wants reform, and so do the Republicans in Congress. They'll put a means test on it, and they'll put other reforms. And if they can come up with the middle of the road, I think there's your solution to this very thorny issue that was, again, the number one issue in the government shutdown. So we're going to see. I think within the next few weeks, we should have some type of an agreement announced.
Supreme Court tariff case, a ruling that could reshape U.S. trade policy.
Yes, it would, big time, because either sometime in December or early in 2026, the Supreme Court, SCOTUS as we call it, Supreme Court of the United States, will issue a ruling on the constitutionality of President Trump's use of tariffs. Now, depending on who you ask, and I've said over the last few weeks, I've talked to too many trade lawyers and I'm tired of it. They're split. Most of them think that Trump will lose this case. Not all.
Mhm.
And the administration is still confident that the Supreme Court will rule in their favor. But let's assume they do not. What's going to happen? There's big question marks on that because you have to read the Supreme Court rulings. If they rule against Trump, they could say from this date forward. That means the all the tariff billions of dollars in tariffs heretofore, we just had 32 billion in the month of October alone, Tommy,
Hmm.
for tariffs. They can stay as is, or they could say you have to repay those, and that opens up. Oh my goodness, there'd be a lot of complexity. On the other hand, if Trump loses the case, where does his trade policy stand? Well, the administration has been hard at work looking at their other tools that they have, and they have many, but they'll be more cumbersome. I think this is part of the reason why you've had some recent scaling back of tariffs. We saw, what was it, last week with Brazil, that
Hmm.
that he withdrew those 40% additional tariffs on Brazilian beef, hamburger, if you will, and coffee, and not all
Orange
coffee, but
juice.
not instant coffee, but coffee. And so I think he's trying to get back as much as he can to his initial concept, Tommy, which was reciprocal. We're going to treat you as you treat us. And Americans understood that, and they vastly supported that. It's when they got into higher tariffs beyond reciprocity is, I think, where it got into the complexity of whether or not he should have gone that far. So bottom line on this one, a ruling's coming. Let's look at the ruling first to look at the consequences to see whether or not they say Trump is within his rights, or if they don't, what tools the White House will use to further continue their tariffs on all these countries, and what the ruling says regarding the tariffs that have come in.
And this young man will have a lot to do with it. Howard Lutnick.
Lutnick,
Yeah,
Secretary of Commerce,
he's
absolutely.
got to have a plan A, a plan B right now, huh?
Yeah, and he's part of the Plan B along with Scott Bessent and Jameson Greer, U.S. Trade
Mm.
Representative. Yeah, they've been hard at work. There's Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, one of the more. I think he's the top star in the Trump cabinet now. He's the go-to man for Trump under a host of issues, whether it's dealing with Argentina and that controversial
Hmm.
bond swap that, by the way, has been reduced. Remember, it used to be,
Yeah.
what was it, 20 billion or 200 billion, whatever it was a lot. They've scaled that back some, and he's the front man for PR on Fox News, Fox Business, CNBC, and X,
Hmm.
and Mornings with Maria as well. So when he talks, you better listen because he's in the know.
He is such a calm speaker. Did you hear that little slap that little verbal back and forth? He was meeting with someone and they were talking about inflation. He said, if you move to a red state, inflation will be less. And he said it just smiling. And I like his style. I
I'm
like
going to
his
have a
style.
series of graphics to prove that, by the way, next week, Tommy.
Oh,
So
that sounds
get
good.
ready for them.
All right. So last thing we did was Supreme Court. How about this one?
Oh, Congress and the clock. You recall that when we had the lifting of the shutdown, the 43-day shutdown, they had what we call a CR, continuing resolution, until January 30th, through January 30th. So that means that Congress, Democrats and Republicans, have until then to complete funding for the 9 agencies and departments that have not yet been funded. USDA was funded, so that's a big deal for USDA. But we have 9 different agencies that still have to be funded, and Congress just needs to do their work. Now, part of the hangup is, let's connect dots here, that
Hmm.
Affordable Care Act issue that the Democrats want to see by the middle of December. They've been promised a vote in the Senate by Majority Leader John Thune, and they're going to see how that goes. And that's why the negotiations that we talked about earlier are so important. There's John Thune, yes. And he has been very successful in getting these complex issues resolved one way or the other when it didn't look like he could to many other people. So, uh, I just cannot imagine that Congress, even this visceral Congress, will do another government shutdown. But we still have until January 30th to reach agreements. I think there'll be a series of minibuses, what we call minibuses, 2 or 3 agencies funding bills that Congress will vote on in order to whittle down the number of agencies that could be part of any additional government shutdown. But I think lessons were learned on this last one. So I'm a
Hmm.
little more optimistic than most people that they'll get it done.
We're going to need your perspective on this because there's so
Uh,
much going on here.
Makes your head swim. EPA, Lee Zeldin, is in a deregulatory bent, and which is a good one. But in the case of the Renewable Fuel Standard Program, here's the best way I can explain it. When electric vehicles were on the rise, okay,
Hmm.
you had our crude oil industry working almost for the first time in a major way with the biofuel companies to come up with better biofuels policy because they had both a lot to gain versus the electric vehicles, which they both didn't like. Okay, crude
Hmm.
oil for obvious reasons, and the renewable fuel standard program is based on gasoline consumed. That's miles driven. You don't use gas with EVs. But now that the rose is off, the bloom is off of the EVs, they're still being sold, but not to the degree of growth that we saw previously under the Biden administration that basically mandated the use of EVs. The crude oil industry has changed, and now they're saying that they think that renewable fuel standard program needs reform. Well,
Mm.
that's got EPA kind of shuffling the deck and different groups going in to talk to the Office of Management and Budget and both sides, biofuels and also the crude oil companies, refiners, relative to what's going to be the allocation factor relative to the SRE, the waivers that a number of refiners got. That's the complexity of this. And then we can bring up RINs. So what's going to be the value of RINs? How is EPA consistently going to treat foreign feedstock for a number of biofuel programs, including the 45Z program, Sustainable Aviation Fuel? All that is on the front burner right now. What's the timeline for this?
Hmm.
We thought it could be sometime in December, but this could carry over into early 2026. Now, the biofuel industry does not want that, and I don't blame them. And you saw that we also said E15. There's a couple on E15. When will we ever get year round E15 through Congress? Because you want to go through Congress, that codifies it, so it can't be changed. If not, then they could have an executive order that we know that if a different administration comes in, they can just change that. But E15 is also an issue relative to California. You recall earlier this year, California had a major change. They were the last state to bless E15, let alone year round. You just couldn't use any E15 in California, and they're a big user of gasoline,
Hmm.
expensive gasoline. So E15 would really help California consumers of gasoline because it runs what around 15% or more cheaper than the price of regular gasoline. Now, uh, the issue with California now is I was on AgriTalk a couple of months ago when they had a biofuel industry spokesman who was very optimistic on the timeline that California would implement E15, and my sources at the time was saying, no, look at the timeline for California. It could go well into 2026, if not longer. And now, this past week, the U.S. biofuel industry has admitted that, and they're saying now they're saying, hey, they're pressing California to accelerate their timeline. It's their state agency called CARB, CARB. Good luck, because they don't have a history of accelerating anything in that agency. But that's where we're at on E15. So you can see relative to the biofuels and even 45Z, I should point out, that's the sustainable aviation fuel. We still don't have the rules and regulations from the Treasury Department and in IRS because it's a tax incentive. Treasury keeps saying, look, we are bogged down getting the final rules and regulations to implement the one big beautiful bill, the old BBB Act, relative to the tax cuts. So that tells me we may not know those rules on 45Z until sometime in 2026. So later rather than sooner, under a host of issues relative to the biofuel programs, Tommy. Hope that
Un-
cleared it up.
Unbelievable. You cleared it up, all right, youngster. All right.
Farm bill uncertainty, that's 2.0. Will we get a skinny? Some people call it skinny farm bill. Other people call it a farm bill 2.0. That's GT Thompson's label for it. I think maybe it could pass the committees, the House and Senate Ag committees. But when it comes to the floor, especially the House, because you're going to have 40 to 50 House Republicans who will vote no on a farm bill just for all
Mm.
host of reasons. So that means they need Democrats in order to pass Farm Bill 2.0. And those are the provisions, Tommy, that were not included in that budget bill last year, in which we got a much needed big increase in reference prices, and we got pretty good improvements in the crop insurance program. So in a big way, that was handled relative that we have already. But the 2.0 are other provisions, and they were recently extended through September next year. So that takes some of the pressure off Congress having to do something right away. But I think the key issue is, how are the Democrats going to view Farm Bill 2.0? Do they want it to go? Or do they think that most of them do right now that they're going to win back the House after 2026 elections? And if that's the case, they may not want a Farm Bill 2.0, thinking they'll have more control over the process if and when they are in control after the 2026 election. So take your cues from the Democrats on this one. Will they come to the party and vote for the skinny farm bill? Are they gonna, or do they want an election year issue, thinking they think that they'll win the House in 2026 and be more in control in 2027?
The story that just doesn't go away. And last week, you and I had breaking news on this. By the way, I took a short clip from when you and I broke that Tyson news and I posted on different social medias. I had a TikTok of you and I talking about the Tyson closing the plant. It went viral
Oh,
on
really?
TikTok. Yeah, I forgot to tell you that.
Wow,
Over
you
a
did not.
125,000
Oh,
views
wow,
on
wow.
TikTok of you and I breaking that news down, and this is the story that just won't go away.
Wow. And I will give a shout out to Secretary Brooke Rollins. She did a interview with the podcast. Maybe you'll
Mhm.
remember the name of the podcast. I don't right now.
I'll look it up for you.
Yeah, but it's a cattle. It was very well. I mean, 40-minute interview. I mean, and I translated it in an item that's on my information. I spent a lot of time going through that excellent interview, and she showed she was very adept at the sensitive cattle industry issues. And those two cattlemen really pressed her. I give them high marks for it. And that's the beauty to me of the quote press right now. It's not the mainstream press that's asking the most important questions anymore. It's these podcast people, ourselves included,
Yeah,
in that
I
one,
have the name
Tommy.
of that podcast, Mr. Wiesemeyer.
Okay.
It's Lonesome Lands, and the podcast, if you go on YouTube, it's called State of the Cattle Industry with Secretary Brooke Rollins, Lonesome Report, and it was a first-class interview. And I got to tell you, whether Joe Vaklovic had her on, other podcasters had on, the beauty of doing what you and I are doing today, we'd love to have her on, Secretary, if you're out there and you just have a little extra time, we'd love to have you on. And it'd be easy for us to contact her with your connections and a few
I
people I know.
and I will. They've been wanting me to interview her and Stephen Vaden, the deputy secretary. I've already got the okay, so I think it's a matter. I'm gonna let's just wait until after they come out with that aid package next week. But maybe by the end, sometime in December, if it fits her schedule, because she's got a busy one, we're going to have her
Yeah.
call in to this podcast, Tommy.
That'd be
Okay.
great. Yeah. And if she wants to call now, 1-855-737-FARMER. If you want to call me, that's her number. Uh, Real quick, what's great and to finish up is I was listening to you on Chip Flory and I could tell you were being pushed because there's commercials and there's breaks
Yeah.
and there's a clock and you get gonged out right when you're getting ready to say something. And that's how real TV works. I did the TV down in Nashville but the beauty of this is whether we go short or go long, our only commercial breaks are ourselves. This show is paid for and sponsored by Mr. Wiesemeyer and myself. So it's just a privilege to media's changed. That's what I'm trying to say, Jim. Media's
Absolute,
changed tremendously.
absolutely, and I can tell from the emails I get from people who follow you, Tommy, and my long time people who have followed my long career. Once they find out where we're at now, and so we're back. We've got a growing community out there, and they give us questions. I've always said in my whole career, my ground truth is farmers and ranchers and ag industry people asking me questions in search of comments and potential answers, and
Yeah.
that's what we try to give them.
You know what we'll do, Jim? Because I just got us thinking, and Brother Joe's here. Brother Joe, we're going to post that podcast, State of the Cattle Industry, Secretary Brooke Rollins' Lonesome Report. We'll post that on the AgBull website, and I'll make a thumbnail for that with
Sure.
their title. And folks, go to the www.agbull.com, and we will have that replay of that podcast.
Yeah,
It was
and
a
if you
doozy.
want my digest of it, which was a long one, I put it in my files. I think that you ran it because it was
We
a special report. Yeah.
absolutely special reports. We run them. We burning off our fingertips with all your special reports. Well, we're getting to the end of the show, and the last thing we covered was, did we did skinny farm build now? Oh, I
Yeah.
popped it up, but then
If it's the
I
last one,
sidetracked.
oh, border real, that's the screwworm. And again, this podcast that she did,
Hmm.
lonesome
Yeah, I got right here. Lonesome Lands,
Lonesome Lane. Okay,
State of the
that she
Cattle
really
Industry.
went through this. Now, here's the one. She and Vaden has also said recently. Stephen Vaden, the deputy
He's a
secretary,
handsome
a
alert right there.
solution on this must be based on science. Now, they're getting close to reopening that border. There was some conjecture in the trade that this could be reopened in a phased-in basis as early as sometime in December. I keep on hearing it's more of a January one, but her comments on this issue shows the sensitivity of that issue. She wants to make sure that things are in place. But I keep saying, Tommy, President Trump told her a few weeks ago he wants that border opened because he knows that there's more than a few cattle that'll eventually make their way to the United States. Hopefully, in a positive way, not to risk the U.S. Cattle industry.
Hmm.
And it's interesting. You had the prices that we've seen. What over this week with
Yeah,
cattle?
yeah. You want to see that?
Yes, I want to see that. Look at that. Oh, it's so good to see an upside in cattle and hogs. I mean, we've got
Hmm.
hogs on the run now again too.
Hmm.
But look at that. We have been seeing a bloodbath. And again, in that podcast interview, she had to address that price downturn, and she acknowledged that the initial decision that Trump talked about relative to quadrupling, was it,
Hmm.
imports of cattle from Argentina, now the Brazilian move relative to beef. But Barron's had a story yesterday, I think, that caught my eye, that it said the equities for certain packing companies are on the rise ever since the discussion has turned to more cattle in the United States, not from U.S. cattle, but the Argentine move, but more importantly, the potential reopening of the border. That just means that they'll have more cattle to kill.
Hmm.
Okay. And so that maybe we've seen the lows. Let's hope so.
Yeah, well,
Let's hope so.
this sure didn't help. When we announced this and broke this on our show live last week, Tyson, Lexington, Nebraska closing, we opened limit down and only traded limit down on Monday, opened Tuesday and quickly recovered, closed higher Tuesday. We closed higher Wednesday. We
Wow.
took off Thanksgiving holiday. Feeder cattle limit bid for part of the day today on
Wow.
Friday going home. A hell of a recovery for the
Yeah.
cattle market.
That tells me the analysts are figuring it out. That yeah, that initially psychologically this was a negative. We knew it when you saw that, Tommy.
Hmm.
But then the more you looked into it, you had the surrounding of feedlots, and you had some alternatives that tempered some of the downdraft that we saw. So let's hope that let's hope it will continue. And Brooke Rollins also handled the question. I think it was Tyson who said, their CEO, who said that you're going to have $10 hamburgers, and she said the
It
internal
wasn't.
analysis at USDA does not say, $10 hamburger.
It wasn't Tyson. I got to correct you on that. It was the guy who sells beef. It was the CEO of like Omaha Beef, where I send you a
Oh,
package
you
of
are
beef.
correct. You are
Say it
correct.
again. Hold on. I want to get a recording of this. Say it again. I'm correcting Jim Wiesemeyer.
Boy,
Made my
boy,
day. Well, I
write
gotta
it down.
correct you because that's my job. I know you do it for
Absolutely.
me.
Well, anyone needs an editor. Let me tell you. Let me.
Oh, that made my day. I could let you
It
go
was
down like that.
Omaha beef. Yeah.
All
No,
right,
you're
damn it.
correct.
I'm paying attention to you. Last but not least, and I love you, brother. Let's take her home.
This one is so confusing that I haven't been able to figure out. If you're, I say in my speeches now, I begin with, if you're not confused about what's going on in Washington, we haven't done our job. Okay, because we're all confused. And this is a classic example. Look at all the court challenges that anything Trump puts out, it's challenged in court. Anything
Hmm.
EPA puts out, it's challenged in court. It's the lawyer employment program. Okay, so it creates a ping pong confusion because as they go throughout the court system, frequently ending up at the Supreme Court, where we finally get a final determination, right or wrong, on some of these sensitive issues. What it tells me, Tommy, is you recall last year we had the Chevron declaration from the Supreme Court, that ruling that basically said, Congress, you have to do your job. We can't continue to doing it for you. And this is my lesson.
Hmm.
Congress has to codify things. Once you put it in writing clearly and leaving not so much discretion to whether it's USDA, Treasury Department, Energy, etc., then you tell the government which way you want to go in implementing legislation. So let's hope Congress does their job now and writes legislation with implementation, factored in, so we don't have all these challenges coming in. And that's my bottom line on that one, Tommy.
Yeah, well, that's a wrap, sir. Take us home with something optimistic and we'll get out of here.
Aid. Now, I know farmers, more than a few, say they want trade aid, not farmer aid, but you have to get that bridge. And we're going to have several bridges because it's needed because of input cost, because of still developing Trump trade policy. So, depending on how many billions of dollars of aid it is, it won't nearly be enough, but it's better than nothing. And then listen to see if Congress kicks in again, which I think that they will, because the cash flow problems are that bad. So we're going to build a pretty solid bridge into 2026 before it's all done, Tommy.
That sounds good. Mr. Jim Wiesemeyer, Wiesemeyer's Perspectives. Of course, if you'd ever like to have Jim speak, go over to Ag Speakers Network. You can have Mr. Wiesemeyer speak at your next event. You know what? I think I'm even on that website too. I'll see you later, Mr. Wiesemeyer.
Say